Hey guys, it's Choco the Chocobo here, and I am back with some Dota 2 gameplay. We're going to be playing Ember Spirit. I'm playing with Kenny, and I'm also like TB and Kenworth, and I'm also playing with a friend of mine, Tyrion Flax is I think his current name. We call him Tai Tai because it used to be what? Did it used to be like
the battle
T
begins.
or something Rex? No, that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I don't remember, but we call him Tai Tai. Fun guy, a little bit of a troll at the moment. I'm kind of bitter about it. No, I'm fine. We love our Tai Tai, but oh, got the hiccups. Good, good. Now this gameplay, I'll be kind of talking about the hero itself and kind of commentating over what I'm doing. I'll try to skip through, and I'm sorry, I have like the hiccups or something. Something terrible's going on with my throat. But yeah, basically what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to kind of slow down like this right here. I'm going to try to slow down moments I think are interesting or at least somewhat important. Just to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page. I got the first blood there. I really positioned poorly for that. Well, it's kind of a lousy place for me to be. And you know, what can you do? But got first blood, worth. So moving on. Nothing really interesting for a little bit. I'm gonna go on 2 times speed for a little bit.
Coming for dinner.
Kind of plug along.
Anyways.
Ember Spirit is an awesome hero. He's a lot of fun to play. He's changed since Dota 1, so if you guys remember him from Dota 1 whenever he was first released, you're like, holy crap, TP warps, what the crap is this? That no longer works, and it's kind of tragic a little bit. But he has retained a lot of his charm. He's retained a lot of the things that kind of made him unique, and he even became more niche, which is awesome, because he's a lot of fun to play, and not everyone can do this, right? So if you can pull this off, then you can safely say like, oh man, I did something pretty cool. Because not everyone can pull off a good Ember Spirit gameplay. He's a very weird hero. At first, you're like, oh, it makes perfect sense. They're like, wait, no, this doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
Denied.
But it's someone that you kind of have to get used to, you have to get a good feel for. And then once you do, you'll get actually to like a really good groove with him. Now that said, I am not building conventionally. I would recommend that you play Ember generally as a lane champion. Why do I keep calling him? Oh my god, I'm so sorry guys. A lane hero. I'm calling him champion because my friend was scarred by LOL. But yeah, basically you have to go ahead and try to utilize his ability to gank. And the reason why I'm saying probably go lane as opposed to solo mid is because yeah, solo mid is fun and like you will have more like ganking ability in terms of like logistics of it as well as just kind of the overall leveling speed and how you're progressing. But he's incredibly hard to manage against a mid lane, especially if it's a ranged one. Like a Shadow Fiend will absolutely just demolish you. This Queen of Pain is not very good, thankfully, so it doesn't go too terribly. But in general, you probably do want a little bit of help, and you work really, really well if someone else has like some kind of disable, stun, stuff like that. And you can see this Queen of Pain's right behind me. I don't know, because you know, Fog of War OP. But that all being said, he is a very fun hero to play, and you can play him as a mid. My build obviously is a little bit weird since I start off with bottle as a first item, not very conventional. But it's fun to do. If you want to do it this way, it's definitely doable. It just is going to require you to be a little bit aware, and you're going to have to contest like every single rune, which is a little bit of a pain. You'll notice my CS is really low, but I try to make up for that with like a high kill gold count. So that's the idea behind it. Obviously it's hit and miss. Like there are lots of Ember Spirit gameplays I've had that are a little bit crappy. In fact, I've been going for this 30+ gameplay since Ember was released in Dota 2, and this is like one of the first heroes where I struggled so hard trying to find a 30 gameplay, and like, you know, scumbagging it, even trying to fountain camp, it wasn't working. So a little bit frustrating. Oh no. Okay, I like this a lot. So here I'm going to kind of showcase something. I was in biz, I had my E up, so I was burning them all to death, and I dropped all my spirits, and then bam, early in the game when everyone's like floating around 6, that kills people. Like that just slaughters them. Ember Spirit's damage is incredible early on, and even like he scales again. It's weird, his early game damage is actually, I would consider, very good. His late game damage can be very good. His middle game damage is absolute garbage. Like he is such a shady hero mid game. It's ridiculous because like most people, like generally they go one way or the other. They start strong early and then they kind of fall into a utility aspect or something like that. Or you start off really crappy and then you slowly build up into like a beast of a machine. Ember seems to be like, I'm awesome early game and I'm alright sort of, usually. Mid game, like, it's not gonna be great, it's gonna be pretty bad. And then you're like, if you did really well and you survived the mid game, you weathered it out, then you're gonna be like a freaking rock star. If you were not so fortunate, then you're gonna probably have a rough time. But yeah, anyways, very farm dependent hero, very important for you to stay kind of on track with everything. Here you see me just dropping her real quick. Nothing really interesting to see there. He is a very, very weird hero in terms of his role, just because of the fact that he is a semi-carry, quote-unquote, but more focused on ganking. He has incredible ability to control, to pressure lanes, to do like a lot of this manipulation to put the game in your favor. And if you do it well, if you do it right, then you can really do a lot of cool stuff. Well, this fight is a little bizarre, but whatever.
Your
Show
place
it.
is here.
Now, right here you can see my teammates are doing some things to help me out quite a bit. I got hooked here after the fact. It's kind of goofy, but
Become peace.
it is definitely important that your teammates are not terrible. If you have a terrible teammates, your life will be lousy. It will be miserable. You will be sad and disgusted with how many terrible moments you have in this game. And here you can see I was backing off from the Juggernaut, but the pledge is like, YOLO swag. Look. I'm like, okay, like really? But anyways, as a hero, he is definitely someone
Radiant's
that
bottom tower is under
you have
attack.
to be on top of what your lanes are doing, and your lanes cannot entirely fail, because if you gank a lot, you're leaving your lane. If you're in like a side lane and someone else is getting experience, it's a little bit less so, but if you are in a solo lane especially, you will find that because of that, if you are getting screwed in other lanes and you're leaving your lane to get screwed over, or they're free farming, you are effectively killing yourself. So you have to be very careful about how you approach that kind of Ember Spirit management of time and resources, because if you spend too long ganking, then you're not going to get the right trade-off unless you're getting kills every single time, which is unlikely. And at the same time, if you're only staying in lane, chances are you're not maximizing your gold output in terms of what you need in order to stay competitive and then eventually steam roll the rest of the game through. So kind of something to keep in the back of your head if you're playing this character. Very, very interesting hero because of the fact that he is so gank heavy. He's a lot of fun to play.
Tower is under
I don't think he's going to be a competitive hero. I'd be very surprised if he was. That being said, though, let's talk about his skills. So his Q, there's a description right there. It's going to vanish probably in a little bit. Yeah, it's gone. But basically what it does is the first two levels of the Q skill. Well, actually, okay. Rewind. Okay. The Q skill is something that roots two enemies at random that are nearby you, and it's like a really, really short range. But basically, like right there, it'll root them into place. Oh, this is where I died. Oh, what a terrible time to... Oh, whatever. I'm not even gonna think about it. But basically, you'll root someone, you'll root two random things, and you'll do like a DPS to them. That's pretty high. It starts off at 40, scales all the way up to 100, I believe. Let's actually... No, darn it. Darn me! Why? Why was I clicking on this? I want to click on... Better screw him. I think that's 40 to 100. And then the first two ranks are going to have a duration of 2, and the third rank and fourth rank are going to have a duration of 3. That's very important because some people will rush that third rank just so they can hold people down for 3 seconds, which is huge. And it also the DPS increases, and it's a pretty sizably strong skill. And it fits into a lot of stuff here. Oh, can I see you get in? Yep, there, 40 to 100. Perfect. And the cooldown decreases, so you can kind of spam it more often, which is handy if you find yourself in a situation where you can actually use it. That being said, obviously not the best farming skill. You can tell that kind of Ember Spirit's mana cost to his mana pool is very wacky. It costs a lot to cast spells on him, and you can't do it all that often. But it's definitely something that if you can see an opportunity to use Q a lot, really strong, really kind of great skill, especially for early trades. But definitely not if you're going to kind of farm it out for a little bit and then kind of build yourself into kind of a monster later on. His W skill is called Slate of Fist. This is a weird skill. Think of a Juggernaut Omni Slash type thing, right? Except you're going to hit every unit within an AoE once. You're going to click on an area, it's going to slash everyone once. Minions take 50% less damage, and that's to prevent you from like LOL Super Battle Fury ending everyone's lives type thing. And you can see here, I kind of botched this. Whatever. I'm not going to talk about that. But basically, it'll hit everything once, and on heroes, it will do a bonus amount of damage. It's not like a terribly huge amount, but it's enough that you will feel like you are doing some kind of, you know, actual usable amount of damage that'll help you out. And you can tell at the early ranks, it has a huge cooldown. Whenever you rank it like up a little bit, the cooldown becomes a little bit more manageable and a little bit better to work with. But again, early on, it's kind of like it takes so long to get it to a good spot. Then your auto attack damage kind of sucks because you can tell his stats are kind of low. It's just a really odd situation. It's not really good in my opinion to level up W first. Sometimes I do. It's very rare. And that's only if I'm like super confident I'm going to snowball or if I have really good confidence in my teammates. But that being said, there is definitely a lot of opportunity there to use, especially late game, because the AoE actually increases per level. So you have a lot of chances to kind of do work. So, Slate of Fist, very great skill. Late game, this is your bread and butter. You're going to be spamming that crap, revealing people, as well as just doing good amounts of damage on everyone that's involved. The E skill. Now, this skill is kind of like the ultimate skill that everyone must know of if you're playing against an Ember Spirit. Because what it does is it gives you immolation. Now, if you don't know what immolation is, that's like this AoE burn effect, right? You can see like the little flames on him, on Queen of Pain right there. As long as your magic shield is up, it'll block a certain amount of magic damage per level. The first one being a measly 50, I think. Yeah, and then like the last level being 500. It's absurd. You also increase how much your burn does. Now that's a really big deal because the duration of the shield increases, your burn damage is going up, and the magic shield itself is becoming more sizable. So as long as they don't break it, you will have a really, really healthy amount of extra damage just kind of floating out there. And it's a great tool for farming. Like, fantastic. A little bit weird to kind of last it sometimes. It gets a little bit sketchy, but overall, it is a very, very good skill to use to help yourself farm, as well as to kind of like give yourself a little bit of protection while doing some more damage and engagements. That's where you're going to get a lot of DPS work from during earlier fights. And a lot of guys, a lot of people will tell you, get E first. Like, max that out first, and then hope to dear God that you're alive still. Because that thing will do a lot of work for you. It'll protect you. It'll get a lot of stuff done. Now, let's skip ahead here. His ult is probably the most like confusing and weird thing of the bunch. You'll notice that the only thing that changes per level of the ult is the damage output. So some people prefer not to level up ult after the first level just because they like it for the mobility. Other people like that extra bit of damage even though it's not really worth. Like, in my opinion, I shouldn't have done it this game, but I did, you know, deal with it. So anyways, the ult, what it does is that you create up to 3 charges of these like remnants of yourself, like these little clones of yourself. Can't target them, they don't really do anything. They do give you a little bit of vision, which is nice. I think they last, what, 35 seconds? Nope, that's the charge time. Calm down, game. Just hold on 1 second. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I don't actually see a timer. But regardless, they do have a finite amount of time they can last. But you get these charges and you can place them in a fairly large range around yourself, and they'll run over. One very important thing to note here, they will run based on your movement speed. If your movement speed is on haste, those things will move so quickly it'll blow your mind. If you are like purged and you can't move, you will move like absolute crap. Like, you will not be able to escape anything or engage anything. Like, you will be garbage with that skill. So keep that in mind. But you send that kind of image of yourself to whatever location you click on, and then you can use the like function of the skill. So if like your normal keybind setup is R is for ult, sometimes D is for the kind of function. Whenever you activate it, you can actually run towards whatever illusion or remnant you're clicking at last, and go through every single one that's currently out and do damage at each of those points. So like right there, if I had used the activation, it would have gone to that remnant, done the burst little damage, and then that's it. If I placed, let's say, I'm gonna pause this for a moment. Let's say that I had like, you know, one here, and then one over here, and then I clicked on this guy over here, I would jump to these illusions, I think 1, 3, 2, and then, or was it, maybe it's the last one, I don't know, I forgot the order, but effectively you'll jump to all these different points in a relatively quick speed for the most part if you're not like under some horrendous slow, but you'll move towards them all, and then you'll jump to whatever one you clicked on last, so you'll end up there. That being said, it's very common. Every now and then you'll see, like, let's say this was an enemy hero, I would actually put 2 here, then one back there. And I'll click on this, so I would jump in, do all the damage, and then warp straight back into safety, so I can kind of harass it. But because there's a 35-second charge time, remember, don't spam this for no reason at all. Like, you should not be using this to get out fountain faster. It's something that you want to keep the charges for, and you want to keep an ample number handy depending upon the situation. Let's keep this replay going here. The ult is very, very kind of temperamental. You have to try it more so than have it explained to you in order to understand it, but it does help you kind of functionally understand what they do. Now, in the mid position, or in a position where you are actually trying to rune guard or kind of control runes, it is very useful sometimes to have a remnant on the rune to spot the rune for you, because you will get there generally a lot faster than anyone else will. Because you can just D over to it and you can just kind of pick up the rune real quick and get out. That being said, if you're not, I really wouldn't worry about it, because it does cost 150 mana to use the activation anytime. The remnants cost nothing. You can place them and not worry about your mana. But because it does cost 150 per use, you don't want to use them all separately all the time. Sometimes it will be what you do, but not necessarily. So, that being said, all the skills of Ember Spirit. Hero is crazy. Let's talk about build. So build with Ember Spirit is a little bit weird, right? There are three kind of main schools of thought, and the most common one is kind of like a weird, you are an assassin, utility hero of doom. And the idea is that you do enough damage, but you need to have some things there to kind of boost your mana to yourself, as well as probably have like drums or something to kind of increase your utility and your presence there, because you're not probably going to be doing that much damage. And that's just kind of tempering expectations, right? And so that kind of like middle of the road, you're kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type thing. I mean, it's there. I don't really like it that much because I feel like other heroes would do it better, and I don't see why you would go with the worst version of something. But it's out there. Generally speaking, you'll pick up things like, you know, Vanguard for increased durability, so that you don't get murdered every fight. Maybe like a Vlad's to kind of give us an aura for damage and as well as HP. And yeah, we're getting like a fair number of stuff. Here I try to make some jukes. You'll also notice something weird, which is every now and then you'll watch me Q the Spirit Breaker. I can actually Q him in the middle of this charge and cancel using that magic immune. So fun stuff. But anyways, so build-wise, you can basically build whatever the heck you want. You can even build 4-staff on if you want. But that's like kind of the thought. There's no real like rhyme or reason behind what you do half the time with that build. It's kind of whatever you feel is needed at the moment, you do. Now, in the case of the kind of full-on, I'm not doing damage and kind of floating around build, that one's actually pretty scary to deal with, just because of the fact that you have a 500 magic shield that pops out of nowhere. You build him as pure tank, you give him some mana regen stuff, and basically what you do is you troll people with your Q, and you just break up fights in really weird ways. And that way, whenever you are using your E, you're burning them all with immolation. Sometimes you'll see a Radiance being put on there for an extreme burn. And then you'll just watch them build tons of health, Vanguard, Parataris, stuff like that. And they'll just wander around trolling people, just burning them to death, and just kind of making fights really inconvenient for the enemy team for repositioning and all that stuff. Pretty funny to watch. I think that's actually a really fun build. But again, not quite what I prefer to do. My favorite build is the pure 100% oh my god glass cannon, what the crap is going on version of Ember Spirit. Now there's two versions of this, the Battle Fury one, which is almost entirely dependent upon whether or not you are just back a little bit. So you can build him as Battle Fury, where your splash is going to be a huge deal. So whenever you cast your W, you're going to be like spinning around, you know, smacking people down, doing a fair bit of damage. And there's also what I'm doing in this game, which is single target damage. You'll notice that, let's go free cam for a little bit. You'll notice in my build here, I'm going to build, I think, 2 Divines after this, and that's my only set of items. Not recommended, but really fun, because whenever you hit anyone with your W, you have a chance to do all your on hits, right? So because it's one slash, you can have like a Mjolnir on there, you can do that. But basically your crits, your other crap will all proc. If they decide to proc, so if you have like 20% chance for each slash. Really, really funny. I saw one guy who had a basher on here, and it blew my mind, because like every now and then arbitrarily you just see some random hero just like flop over stunned, and you're like, what happened to you? Really funny. Wouldn't recommend Basher though, because of the fact that there is a cooldown on Basher and it's kind of pointless on Sleight of Hand sometimes. But You know, things like MKB, even Scythe of Vi, or not Scythe of Vice, the Desolator, stuff like that. Things that influence things on hit can be very, very handy. Getting your damage or your kind of utility out there. But yeah, a lot of fun. I think the single target one is hilarious just because of the fact that like squishy targets, you slate of hand them once, gone. Because you can do it from like a distance, keep yourself a little bit safe, and just level through it. You can see like that AoE is actually really huge. Like that's a big old AoE. You can move that around. Anyways, let's talk about strategy. Strategy-wise, again, you want to be ganking. You want to make sure that you get as much output out of your ganks as possible. If there are a lot of spellcasters, no questions asked, your E will probably be your first skill, and then, or not your first skill necessarily, but your E will be the first skill you max out, and then you'll probably pick up Q, and then a little bit of W here and there. That's just because the magic shield obviously is going to help you against spellcasters, but more importantly, that whole burn is going to just do so much work for you. It's really cool just because it does sustain damage, and you don't have to worry about the fact that your actual attack damage is pretty low. Now,
Dire's bottom tower is under
in terms
attack.
of you're up against like either a well-mixed team or a team that's not spellcast heavy, your ability to use Q in the situations in which it arises is going to become very important. If you can see yourself being in 1v1s, maybe even 1v2s, but as long as there's not like tons of creeps around you at all times, then you may want to consider getting Q, because the DPS hike is pretty nice, as well as the root, so it can really help set up for early kills. It can also really do work on ganks. It really ruins people's days. So, something to think about. Beyond that, kind of thinking about what kind of strategy you're using, you do want to show a certain preference for lanes that combo well with you. If you have ways to root them multiple times, like with your root and someone else's root or a stun or something like that, it obviously will become a lot easier for you to take out some enemies. Alternatively, if you don't have it, if you have a completely empty lane where it's just like pure damage and stuff, if you can burst them down quickly, fine, but most cases it's going to be very painful to do that. So bear that in mind as you're kind of plugging it along. Try to make sure that you coordinate better ganks in terms of the quality of them has to be pretty good. You can't be like, let's say, you can't just gank them like fudge, right? You can't just like set up the wonderful situations yourself. You do kind of need to set up from your teammates in order to make it really work. Either or you just clean up crew. I mean, either one. But in general, if you're kind of going for like the safe way to think about it, you should be expecting and trying to have your teammates help out a little bit. Now, important thing to note here. You notice right here, my health is not dropping. That's because of Magic Shield. Do not underestimate the cases where Magic Shield will save your life. This thing is amazing. This thing will block so many things of damage. It will blow your mind. That thing is ridiculous. I don't even understand. I love it. I think it's amazing. It's like having a pipe of insight that you can just spam. It's freaking fantastic. It's what? Yeah, 30, what, not 35. Yeah, what? So 35-second cooldown, it lasts 20 seconds at max rank, so you're effectively having a 15-second downtime. Ridiculous. So, fun stuff. Now, in terms of the way you play him, if you're playing him on a side lane, do not go bottle generally. It's not only going to probably take off your mid, but it's going to be kind of hard to reuse with all the courier stuff that's been going on. It slows down whenever it's empty. You probably want to go with something like Stout Shield to make yourself a little bit tankier. Get Slipper's Agility, get that base damage up a little bit, get those stats up, stuff like that. Maybe a Stout, or not Stout Blade, a Quelling Blade if you're having trouble last hitting. But generally speaking, kind of, a standard melee carry build set that you just kind of slowly scale up into and all that good stuff. If you're building damage. If you're building utility, I don't know, maybe get a Shadow Blade, run around invisible and burn people to death. It's up to you. You do what you want. That being said, there is definitely a lot of flexibility in terms of the ways you can build Ember Spirit. It's very, it's a little hectic with everything about your builds. You have to consider where you are. Like, even for me in this game, even though I'm 26 at this point, I'm still struggling to find a lot of damage. And you can tell I get cooked so quickly. Like, one Ancient ult takes me down to, like, half third. It's crazy. But my damage output's pretty nice right now.
Radiant's middle tower. Radiant structures are fortified.
Beyond rune control, beyond kind of just general strategy of ganking, you also want to make sure that you are very, and I mean extremely careful and aware of when enemies start dropping, like dipping in health below the half health range. if you find an opportunity to exploit that, exploit the heck out of that, like drive it into the ground, have no remorse. It is actually I like that play a lot. Hold on. Sorry, I really like this part because this was just funny. But yeah, if you have the opportunity to gank, absolutely do it. It is probably more important than getting gold in your lane from creeps, just because of the fact it'll help your lane, they'll build the advantage, increase the gold difference. In general, it's really cool. So Sleight of Hand going out, kind of did my damage, backed off a little bit, trying to distance myself from more spells. Ult for an extra bit of damage. Would have had that if Earth Shaker hadn't smacked it, but yeah, my Divine is like, once you get a Divine on here, it is hilarious. Like, the amount of damage your W does is absurd. And it makes people sad. So whenever I crit for like 700 or whatever, after like some armor stuff. But yeah, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of fun. Now let's talk about some taboos. Some taboo things in here. Do not, under any circumstance, think that you can initiate fights unless you have an escape mechanism. Like a really good escape mechanism at that. Like, you're about to warp out from a 10 level escape mechanism. You will die if you fight anyone head to head often. It just does not end well for you. Even like right here, it's 30-some minutes into the game. Granted, I don't have any survivability items, but that being said, it definitely is. It's a struggle to stay alive because a lot of people are going to damage you and just beat you to the ground. There's not much you can do about that. So you pick your fights carefully. You want to stay on the outside limits of the fights, kind of poking away at them. Sleight of Hand, use it as a ranged kind of nuke and just like smack them down a little bit, like poke them down until they're low enough they can finish them off with like a good ult combo in, with a little bit of Q and E going on, or just, you know, poke them and then just hope that your teammates initiate well and you can clean up. So I mean, those are your real choices in most of the fights. That all being said, strategy is also very much shaped by you. It's true that, you know, ganking all that stuff's fine, but he is a hero that you really have to get your own feel for. Some people play him very differently than I do, and they're all very handy. And this Ancient, man, I swear, this Ancient loves ulting me. It drives me absolutely nuts. It does almost nothing to me because I have shield, but it was so annoying because he kept ulting me like everywhere on the map. Like, he would just haunt me. Drove me crazy. But anyways, that all put aside, let's kind of recap some stuff that's going on in this game. I'm 26 kills up, 6 deaths, and what, 8 assists. So you can see on like the kind of scoreboard here, I have a very nice sizable lead, thanks to a lot of the work from my teammates. I wasn't a huge fan of this Earthshaker because I feel like we could have done more, but he was by no means like a terrible teammate, just not the greatest I could have asked for. But you can tell I went for Divines, and the reason for Divines is because in this gameplay, I'm going for a high kill count rate. This is extremely high risk, because if I lose my Divines, I effectively just put my team into a lot of trouble. But I had pretty good confidence that I could escape from this fight, so that my teammates could, you know, recover from me having dropped a Divine. But the idea here is that each W proc will hit them like a truck for guaranteed, I think, like 500 damage minimum. Even though, like, I know whenever you add them, they're like, but Sleight of Hand has 120, so it should be 600-ish. But like, effectively, I count on about 500. And then if I crit for around 1k, right? So that Sleight of Hand ability is huge. And here I'm going to do a little bit of scumbagginess, but this is going to demonstrate the point of Sleight of Hand being ridiculous with Divines and stuff. If you get your damage up per strike high enough, it is ridiculous how much damage you do. Like, it is absurd. On borderline upsetting from what you can see.
Radiant's middle tower
You see there, I just auto-attacked with nothing special. Now you see that? The first hit I sent out did not that much, you know, it's kind of nothing to write home about. Watch this follow-up Sleight of Hand. I crit for 2.2k because of the Divines and because of the data list. 2.2. That is absurd. That amount of damage is like morally wrong. But regardless of that, you know, it's definitely a high risk thing, but this is one of the builds I have the most fun with. Maybe you'll have fun with it too. Anyways, end up with a score 31-6-9. Not bad. So I really hope you enjoyed this gameplay. I hope that this commentary was alright. I don't know, it's been a while since I've done this. I also had a cookie, like a really nice cookie, so I'm really hyper. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in other videos. I'm going to probably not do many Dota videos as a warning. I'll make like parody stuff, maybe. But in general, I'm probably not going to be making terrible many Dota posts to the channel unless it's like a guide or something, just because of the fact that Number one, it doesn't seem to be like really the calling to everyone, and number two, I think that streaming is a lot more fun to play, or to involve Dota, and I don't think it's really fun to watch someone play Dota. I think it's fun to actually watch someone as they're playing Dota and be like, dude, like what? Like it's like a horror movie basically. You're like, don't go in that door, man. Don't do it. Oh my god, he went. Like, it's fun. It's like StarCraft. I don't think it's as much fun to watch it happen, but it's fun to like watch it live and then be like, he's gonna do it. Oh man, and they just kind of all get to discuss it. I think it's fun. I don't know. But anyways, I will see you all later. And if you are interested in Dota streams, please let me know through Twitter. Actually, comments below works as well, but Twitter is a little bit better for me. I will post up there when I stream. And other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.